guys, welcome back to another video. Some updates here for the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition. As we know, the trial is beginning, the pre-evidentiary hearing June 21st, and then there's 5 days of the evidentiary hearings that would be wrapping up on June 29th. But we do have some updates here in terms of an email that could potentially be harmful to Microsoft, who's going to be showing up at the trial, as well as FTC's arguments that they're going to be, I guess, using to try to beat Microsoft here in court. And it just doesn't really seem that strong what they are proposing. But let's start off here with the email. This was a big thing that was happening. And this is because an article here from Stephen Totilo was posted on Axios, and he also tweeted it out. And he made it really sound like this email was very damning towards Microsoft, in the sense that this email was specifically in regards to the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition. But now we know that that is not the case. And this is what he tweets out. New lawyers in the gamers antitrust suit against the Microsoft Activision deal have been arguing over Exhibit K. Why? Because it supposedly shows an Xbox exec saying that the plan around buying Activision is to put PlayStation out of business. And that Xbox executive he's referring to here is Matt Booty. They're arguing to not have this document or this email unsealed. However, the thing here is the entire article and the entire premise of what this email was about is actually false, because he goes on here later and he does update what he says here in the story. He says, followers of my recent journalism will realize this email was sent by Matt Booty. Imagine how I felt when I read it on Tuesday that the exec I had spoken to the Sunday before had this claimed about him the Friday before that, the one time I don't read my court docs on time. And then he says this: story will be updated to add this. Apologies for summarizing it in a tweet in a manner that suggested the email was specifically about the deal and not one of the general Xbox strategies. Hopefully we'll see the email soon, or at least hear about it in the testimony. And this is the update. A Microsoft rep shares a significant update to this. While they still can't divulge the contents of the email, they're able to now say that it was sent in 2019. That means that whatever anti-PlayStation sentiment strategy it may contain preceded Microsoft's offer to Activision. And the question here is, does this even matter? It's sent in 2019. It has nothing to do with the Xbox Activision Blizzard acquisition. Is this something that, if we do see what this email says, could it hurt Microsoft going forward? Now, I'm not an expert. It seems like this really is a nothing issue, because it was sent in 2019. I mean, as a business, competing is not illegal or anti-competitive. Wanting to beat your competition and talking about that, I don't think in any way is illegal or unlawful or anything like that. And Hogue Law actually weighs in on this, as he was asked this question. And here's what Hogue Law says. The question here, first of all, it says, it feels like a nothing in my opinion, as no regulator has made reference to it, and it feels doubtful regulators would miss it, but gamers wouldn't. Not to mention, besides the FTC, every regulator has thrown out the console argument. But what is your take here? And Hogue Law says this: the disconnect may be that there's absolutely nothing wrong with trying to put out your competition out of business. That's the very nature of competition. To be unlawful, the regulator or plaintiff has to tie the desire to an illegal restraint or other unfair competition. So right there, basically what he's saying is there's nothing wrong with trying to beat your competition. But is Microsoft doing something that is breaking the law, that is unfair in the realm of competition to be able to do this? And from what we understand right now, they aren't. Would this deal make it unfair? That's what the FTC is going to try and argue. But this whole email thing was going around, and people were saying, oh, they've got them. They're going to show that the entire intent of this deal was to try to foreclose PlayStation, until later realizing this is an email from 2019. So again, seems really like a nothing burger, but we will see what happens. Maybe they do unseal it. Maybe we do see how just bad this email is. And he goes through a detailed plan as to exactly how they're going to get rid of PlayStation. But that was something that was going on. It was pretty interesting to see some of the reactions out there, either for or against whether this really meant anything. Now, when it comes to the actual case itself, Microsoft is going to be sending everyone essentially to actually argue against the FTC in court in person. It says here that Satya Nadella will be going, Phil Spencer will be going, CEO Bobby Kotick from Activision will be going, and then there's also this huge list of executives from Xbox that will be showing up to argue against the FTC in court. Sarah Bond, Microsoft CEO Amy Hood, Matt Booty, Microsoft Gaming CFO Tim Stewart, and Lori Wright will also be there. And Lori Wright's an interesting person because Lori Wright previously testified for Microsoft at the Epic Games versus Apple trial, and she will also be appearing. And as we know, the whole thing with Xbox and Apple and Game Pass and not being able to put Game Pass as a singular app with all of the games inside of that onto the App Store, and then they had to make a workaround with the browsers. So was there to testify for Microsoft at that case, and then will also be here. And then also CFO Armin Zerza of Activision will also be testifying. Now, Jim Ryan, right? Jim Ryan, you would think would want to show up there in person, as he has been the strongest opponent of this entire deal. You think he would take time out of his schedule and make sure to be there in court to argue against this acquisition. He will not be. He will actually only be testifying via video link to discuss market competition. So that's funny because he's the biggest opponent, but couldn't even make time to actually show up to the court itself. But everybody is going to be there. And what is interesting about this is that if you are very interested in seeing or hearing everything, I shouldn't say seeing, hearing everything as to what is going to happen, there is actually a Zoom link that will be available where you can listen in to the court case. At first, it was going to be video, but they've decided now it's only going to be audio. But that is still available, and I think audio is good enough for sure to be able to figure out what's going on. So it's going to be a very interesting week if you are going to be following what is going on, or a very interesting couple of days. Because, like I said, June 21st is the pre-evidentiary hearing, and then there's 5 days of the evidentiary hearings. June 22nd, 23rd, 27th, 28th, and the 29th. And some of the things we will be hearing are summarized here by Foss Paddens and Florian Mueller, at least from the FTC side of things. Here's the list that he put together of the arguments that they are going to be making. Nothing really new here, but one of the things that I find the most interesting is that they say that Nintendo Switch is not a Generation 9 console, which is just crazy to me because it's literally just ignoring the actual truth and facts of the gaming industry. Saying that the Nintendo Switch is not a Generation 9 console is just false. Just because it is less powerful doesn't mean it isn't part of Generation 9. But as we know, everything that has happened with the console harm theory and the markets that have been defined by these regulators have been only focusing on the high-end console market, PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and Nintendo Switch was nowhere to be found, which I actually think making that argument has helped Microsoft here, because Microsoft could go out and show the market share and show that PlayStation had like a 90+% market share in different regions, where the reality is that's not true, because you have to include the Nintendo Switch to have the true numbers in terms of console market share. They also are arguing that even if Nintendo was included in the market, the anti-competitive effects would be the same, which, I mean, Nintendo could easily be used as an example as to how not having Call of Duty, you're not going to be foreclosed. You can still have a very successful console, which Nintendo has had, and we know now that they would be getting Call of Duty if this deal does go through. He says here, they say that the court should not give weight to Microsoft's agreements with NVIDIA and others, nor its European Commission remedies, but those are facts that the FTC can't deny. The FTC argues that Microsoft and ABK should discuss those remedies at the August FTC in-house trial. But he says here, he believes that Judge Corley won't ignore those facts, except that she may very well find she doesn't even have to reach remedies, as there's no credible theory of harm in the first place. So this part's kind of ridiculous as well, as they're just basically saying, ignore the fact that Microsoft has made 10-year deals with other cloud streaming platforms, NVIDIA, GeForce Now, Nintendo, and ignore the European Commission and the remedies that they created working with Microsoft to make this deal non-anti-competitive and make it work in that region. Just ignore all of that stuff and basically saying, hey, they didn't do their job, I would say, by allowing this deal to be approved in the European Commission. Now it says here, the FTC points to the CMA's rejection of Microsoft's proposed remedies. And Florian Mueller says here, I've predicted before that the FTC would try to point to the CMA decision, and Microsoft and ABK will highlight that is an outlier. And then New Zealand, we also heard that New Zealand right now is extending their decision date to July 17th for some reason. They're still considering all options. New Zealand is still potentially considering the console harm theory in their decision that they are going to be making. So we'll see what happens with that. But from what we understand is that they are neutral on this right now. They just haven't had time, I guess. I don't know. They've had plenty of time, but I guess they believe that they need more time to look into the decision for the acquisition. But that was just some updates. There was a lot of stuff going on with this deal today, so I just wanted to get that out there for you guys. So if you are new here, make sure to hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, and if you did enjoy this video, I really appreciate all your support, and thank you guys for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.